The journey to overthrow the cruel conspiracy. The female doctor takes over the hospital, restores the family heritage, and saves the patient. The night shift at Metropolitan General Hospital is always busy, but tonight, an event will change everything. Dr. Sophia Lin, a doctor dedicated to patients, had just finished her examination when an unknown patient was brought into the emergency room. He was an older, unconscious man, wearing tattered clothes and not carrying any identification papers. "One more case of homelessness," Dr. Richard, Sophia's co-worker, said indifferently. "Take him out into the hallway and wait for a bed to become available, and deal with it." But Sophia felt something was wrong. This man, despite his attractive appearance, had well-groomed hands, the mark of someone who had worked professionally. More importantly, he was holding an old leather notebook. "Bring him into room 712, Sophia decided, even though she knew the room was reserved for VIP patients. Amy Collins, the head nurse, looked at her with astonished eyes. "Sophia, are you crazy? If Dr. Victoria Morgan knew, she would be in big trouble." Sophia took a deep breath. "Every patient deserves care. I can't leave him out in the hallway in this state." As expected, the next morning, the sound of Dr. Victoria Morgan's high heels rang out in the hallway. Sophia didn't need to look to know that the CEO of the hospital was approaching. Her eyes were cold and her voice was sharp as a knife. "Tell me, Dr. Lin," Victoria said, her lips smiling sarcastically. "Why would an unknown patient be in room 712, the VIP area?" "He needs urgent care," Sophia replied, trying to stay calm. "His symptoms cannot be ignored." Victoria laughed coldly. "What do you think you're doing? The Metropolitan General is no longer a charity hospital. This is a business establishment. Take him out of the corridor immediately, or you can leave on your own." Sophia felt a surge of anger. "It's not medical. This is a hospital, not a company." Victoria sneered. "Then, Dr. Lin, you're fired." When Victoria had just given the order to take the man out, he suddenly regained consciousness. In a clear and authoritative voice, he exclaimed, "Actually, I am the owner of this hospital." This sentence made the whole room go silent. Sophia quickly realized that this unknown man was no stranger but Thomas Gray, the hospital's largest shareholder. The situation immediately changes, but the events that follow will put Sophia in a dangerous confrontation that she never anticipated. The tense VIP room 712 suddenly became suffocating silent after Thomas Gray, an anonymous man, spoke up. "Actually, I am the largest shareholder of this hospital." Dr. Victoria Morgan, CEO of Metropolitan General, stood silent. Her confident expression changed from surprise to fear. The name Gray is not a strange name. The Gray family founded the hospital in its early days, but their absence for more than a decade has made people think they've given up. Sophia quickly realized the importance of this situation. But before she could act, Mr. Thomas's condition began to deteriorate. The heart rate monitors screeched and the survival indicators plummeted rapidly. "Code blue!" Sophia screamed, running to the patient's bedside. She quickly deployed emergency measures. "Stand back!" Victoria shouted. "You're no longer an employee here." Sophia ignored the order. "He's being poisoned," Thomas said, his voice weak but clear. "Check the supply of medicine." Sophia paused, feeling a wave of terror rise in her heart. Over the past few months, she has noticed that some patients have unusual complications, strange reactions to drugs that are so safe. "You changed your medication provider not long ago," Sophia said, her eyes narrowing as she looked at Victoria. Victoria laughed coldly. "That's right, but what are you referring to?" Sophia looked straight at her. "You're poisoning the patient." While tensions were rising, Victoria revealed the truth. She deliberately increased the death rate at the hospital to lower the reputation of the Gray family, thereby forcing them to sell back their shares. "I've turned this place into a profitable business," Victoria said, her voice full of pride. "The Gray family, with its silly ideal of health care for all, only makes this hospital a loss. I didn't destroy it, I saved it." Sophia felt her blood boil. "By poisoning patients and hurting them? Is that how you saved the hospital?" Thomas, though weak, tried to speak. "Victoria, you have turned my family's legacy into a money-making machine despite human life." But she forgot one thing. She didn't own this place. As Victoria tries to take control of the situation, Sophia realizes that this is just the beginning. She quickly uncovered deeper conspiracies when she examined the notebook Thomas had with her. Evidence that Victoria had been secretly manipulating the hospital's medical system for years. Sophia understands that in order to protect Thomas and the legacy of the Gray family, she will have to confront Victoria and the people she is hiding. Tensions rise when Sophia realizes that this fight is not only to protect patients, but also to expose the truth behind the cruel plots. Sophia felt that the atmosphere in the VIP room 712 was getting more and more stuffy. Thomas Gray, the hospital's largest shareholder and founding heir, was struggling with signs of poisoning, while Dr. Victoria Morgan, CEO of Metropolitan General, stood there with a frighteningly calm expression. Her arrogant confessions exposed the dark conspiracy behind what was happening at the hospital. Sophia saw the old leather notebook that Thomas had been carrying, which was now in Victoria's hands. "It's his notebook," Sophia said, her eyes narrowing. Victoria laughed coldly. "You think I don't know what's in here? This is enough evidence to get me in trouble, but it can also be cancelled if you're not careful." Sophia knew that this notebook contained important information. Thomas recorded it all, she said. Evidence of her changing drug suppliers, increasing the death rate, and also conspiring to force the Gray family to sell their shares. Victoria stepped forward, clutching the notebook. "I don't need to explain anything to you," she replied, her eyes cold. As Thomas's condition deteriorated rapidly, Sophia had no time to crouch. "He needs emergency care right now," she said, stepping forward for help. But Victoria motioned for 2 special security guards, who were not part of the usual security guard, to stop Sophia. "This hospital no longer belongs to the Gray family," Victoria declared. "I'm the only one who decides who gets to live and who doesn't." Sophia looked at her, feeling a burst of anger. "You're not a doctor. She is a person who takes advantage of the medical name to make money, despite the lives of patients, and I'm not going to let you do this again." At that moment, a notification sounded through the intercom. "Code Black is being activated." The entire hospital transitioned to Protocol 17. Victoria turned pale. "Impossible. That protocol was removed years ago." "Really?" Sophia said, smiling. "Or maybe you just think so." The lights in the room suddenly switched to UV mode, revealing the blue streaks of light on Victoria's hands and clothes, a sign of the poison she had used. Silence filled the room as this light became irrefutable evidence. Thomas, though weak, smiled slightly. "We know she won't stop, and we're prepared." When the situation reversed, Victoria began to panic, trying to find a way to escape. But Sophia and her team, with support from the FBI, are well prepared to expose all her crimes. The fight at Metropolitan General is no longer just about power. It's about protecting the Gray family's legacy and restoring the hospital's humanitarian mission. The atmosphere in the VIP room 712 is more tense than ever. Under UV light, blue streaks were visible on the hands and clothes of Victoria Morgan, CEO of Metropolitan General. This is irrefutable evidence that she directly used poison to manipulate the death rate at the hospital. Sophia is relieved that Victoria's plans begin to be derailed, but she knows the fight is not over. "You don't understand anything," Victoria shouted, her voice full of despair. "I saved this hospital. If it weren't for me, it would have gone bankrupt long ago." Sophia looked directly at Victoria, her eyes cold. "Save the hospital by killing the patient? You don't deserve to be in the medical profession." Thomas Gray, from his deathbed, was weak but still able to speak. "Victoria, you didn't just betray the hospital. She betrayed all the values that my family had built, and today that's going to be over." Victoria stepped back, clutching a phone in her hand. "If I fall, all of you will be dragged along too." She pressed the button on the screen, and immediately the alarm system sounded throughout the hospital. Victoria laughed wildly. "I installed an automated system. In another 15 minutes, all the drugs poisoned in the hospital will be distributed. Hundreds of patients will not survive." Sophia stared at the screen that displayed the warnings. "Did you program a self-destruct mechanism just to hide your crimes?" Victoria smiled faintly. "That's right. And if you want to stop it, you have only one option. Give me full control of the hospital." Sophia quietly opened her handheld device, entering a series of commands into the hospital's main system. Maybe you don't know, Sophia said, her voice calm, but this hospital is no longer under your control. Victoria paused, her eyes full of skepticism. Thomas smiled lightly, his voice gradually getting stronger. Sophia is not just a doctor. She is the granddaughter of Richard Gray and the legal heir to the hospital. All control has been transferred to her since last week. On the screen, the alerts start to disappear, and the system returns to normal. I disabled her mechanism, Sophia said. Every patient will be safe. Victoria fell into a state of despair, looking around for a way out. But before she could act, FBI agents appeared, led by Amy Collins. Victoria Morgan, Amy said, was arrested for abuse of power, medical fraud, and intentional poisoning of patients. When Victoria was led away in handcuffs, the hospital fell silent. Sophia knew that this was just the beginning of Metropolitan General's journey to restore her reputation. With the support of Thomas and the medical team, she was determined to bring the hospital back to its original mission, to put patients first and honor the legacy of the Gray family. With Victoria Morgan's arrest, the atmosphere at Metropolitan General Hospital seems to have become more relaxed. But Sophia Lynn knew that her work had only just begun. The collapse of Victoria has exposed many of the problems that still exist in hospitals, from a manipulated health system to a loss of trust among staff. Sophia felt the great burden of stepping into her new position, who ran and defended the legacy of the Gray family. After officially taking over the management of the hospital, Sophia began to carry out revolutionary changes. She convened a hospital-wide meeting, standing in front of the medical team, administrative staff, and experts to make her commitment. Metropolitan General was built to serve the community, Sophia said, and we're going to put it back in that spot. Healthcare is not about profit, it's about people. Her words inspired the entire team. Many employees who lost faith under Victoria now feel hopeful when they see a leader who is willing to put patients first. Sophia started by changing the drug supplier and setting up a strict inspection system to ensure quality, improved processes to minimize errors, and increase transparency. Thomas Gray, who has since recovered, becomes Sophia's mentor. He uses his experience and deep understanding of her family's heritage to assist her in making strategic decisions. "You're doing well, Sophia," Thomas said during a meeting. "Your grandfather will be very proud to see the hospital back on the right path he started." One of the biggest changes Sophia made was to establish a free care program for disadvantaged patients. This is how she wants to restore the core values that Gray's family has built. Everyone deserves medical care, regardless of financial ability. Every day, Sophia spends time not only in meeting rooms, but also in hospital rooms. She still keeps the shift like a doctor, listening and supporting each patient. For her, this is not only a responsibility, but also a way to connect with her family heritage. A year after Victoria Morgan was arrested and Sophia Lynn officially took over the Metropolitan General, the hospital changed completely. But the journey to restore the Gray family's legacy is not just about reforming the system, but also about affirming the core value of health, putting people before profit. When Sophia stepped into the CEO position, she faced a series of challenges. The system was manipulated by Victoria, the staff lost trust, and the hospital's reputation was damaged. But Sophia was not discouraged. She started by re-establishing order, changing old policies, and building an environment where people felt heard and respected. "We're not just healing, we're healing faith," Sophia said in her first meeting with the medical team. "We will bring the Metropolitan General back as a symbol of humanitarian care." One of Sophia's first steps is to improve the drug supply system, ensuring quality and safety for patients. She establishes a strict monitoring process, making all stages from import to distribution transparent. She also established intensive care teams, supporting disadvantaged patients and minimizing waiting times. For Sophia, each patient is a separate story that needs to be treated with respect and devotion. Thomas Gray, who has since recovered, becomes Sophia's close advisor. "I'm doing what my grandfather always wanted," he said. "I not only rebuilt the hospital, but also restored people's trust in medicine." Not stopping at internal reforms, Sophia expanded free healthcare programs for people in difficult circumstances. She partners with nonprofits to provide healthcare to impoverished areas where medical care used to be a luxury. "We're not just a hospital," Sophia said during a kickoff ceremony for the new program. "We are part of the community." Under Sophia's leadership, the Metropolitan General not only restored its reputation, but also became a symbol of medical reform. The hospital leads the country in terms of quality of patient care, transparency, and humanitarian programs. Standing in front of the office window looking down on the hospital campus, Sophia felt proud. "We did it," she told Thomas during a quiet evening. "Yes, you are not only reviving the legacy of the Gray family, but you are also creating something greater," he replied. Sophia nodded, her eyes looking to the future. This is just the beginning. From there, Sophia continued her work not only as a leader, but also as a physician, upholding the legacy of the Gray family, that medicine is not just a profession, but a mission, a commitment to people.